Be discussing the race recap from Sachsenring round 8 of the MotoGP 2021 World Championship. There was 3 Grand Prix here today in Sachsenring, or yesterday rather, and we'll be starting them off in order with Moto3, moving on to Moto2, and then finally the big bad boys in MotoGP. Starting off first with Moto3, the 250cc mayhem that is always occurring in no matter what track we ever go to. The Moto3 boys just put on a wicked show. Honestly, I think it's the most underrated part of the entire weekend. I love watching Moto3, I really do. But we will be discussing the Grand Prix winner, which is of course Pedro Acosta, Kaita Toba in second place, and in third place, Dennis Foggia, with a little bit of controversy regarding Jeremy Alcoba. Well, looking at the race winner, Pedro Acosta, once again, he looks absolutely brilliant in Sachsenring. He was pretty much always up there regarding first place, second place, third place, podium positions. Pedro Acosta always looked like he was destined to be on the podium here in the Sachsenring. Dennis Foggia put up a massive fight and really looked like the only person who could potentially stop Pedro Acosta. Dennis Foggia unfortunately was unable to do so. Pedro Acosta once again just throwing everything in the kitchen sink at everyone, and no one can respond to Pedro Acosta's brilliance this season. He is a cocky individual on the bike and off the bike, and I tell you what, it's paying dividends already. The guy can do anything he wants with that Red Bull KTM, and it's sad to see his teammate Jaume Masia trying to compete with Pedro and not being able to get the job done. So thumbs up for Pedro Acosta once again. Brilliant race from him. He was super elated as he crossed the line because it was a hard-fought race. It really was. A strong battle with Dennis Foggia that went down to the last couple of corners. From about turn 8, he chucked a move up on the inside of Dennis Foggia that would make a grown man cry, and it seemed to be that Jeremy Alcoba took advantage. Kaita Toba was there as well, trying to chuck it in, and Dennis Foggia got a little bit beaten up towards the end of the Grand Prix. Now, I mentioned Jeremy Alcoba being part of a controversy that occurred, and basically overtook on the green going down into the waterfall section, and quite honestly, it was absolutely bizarre. He made a move in on the green, completely abused the track limits, and then chucked it up on the inside of Sergio Garcia, which effectively forfeited his chances of a victory or even a podium finish. Really bizarre stuff from Jeremy Alcoba. He does a lot of strange things on the track and is very aggressive. We seen last time out in Catalonia, sitting up on the racing line and forcing the other riders to potentially bump into the back of him or to just take evasive action. Not a brainy rider, I don't want to say it, but it's kind of like that. He doesn't really think about the other people, he's more so thinking about himself. But regardless, Jeremy was notified to take one position backwards, so therefore allow another rider through and to demote himself one position, which he didn't do at any point. Now, he was overtaken into the final corner, so therefore he felt that that was enough to drop the position, but it's not really. If someone's going to fight you and make the overtake, you're not exactly relinquishing the position, nor voluntarily giving the position back to the other guy. You're just allowing the rider to overtake you. So in my opinion, I don't think that was fair. However, the race stands. He did finish in third place, but reluctantly for him, it did occur that Dennis Foggia was inheriting his position and Jeremy Alcoba was bumped off the podium and was sent down to fourth place. Now, of course, the big issue was regarding the qualifying session for Darryn Binder. Now, Binder collided with Joel Kelso in turn 3, and honestly, it was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. It was just two riders clashing into each other. Granted, Darryn Binder coming out of the pit lane, he was very aggressive and eager to chuck in some quick lap times, but he got black flagged from the session, and then he was given a ride-through penalty during the race. Personally, for me, it looked more like a racing incident, but the stewards really didn't see that way, and of course, due to the actions that occurred in Catalonia with the riders getting overly aggressive with each other, it did make sense that they are taking things ever so serious. But I thought that was a little bit too harsh for the South African. I thought that was a little bit too much, because I understand black flagging him from Q1, so he has to start far back, but then giving a further penalty which affects the race, because a ride-through penalty effectively ruins the entire Grand Prix. I think he would have preferred a double long lap penalty, or a triple long lap penalty, rather than the ride-through penalty. The ride-through is just, forget it. Your race is over. I remember Cal Crutchlow getting the same penalty for moving on the starting grid back in Argentina. I can't remember what year that was, but I do recall that happening, and that effectively completely ruined the race. Ride-through penalties are a killer for any sense of race performance in general. But Sachsenring for Moto3, wow, it had a lot of crashes. A lot of silly mistakes were being occurred into turn 1, a lot of issues going into the waterfall section, a lot of carnage. Stefano Neppe crashing out of a brilliant, which would have been a brilliant finish. Giammasia crashing out into turn 1 after clipping in the rear of another rider. Riccardo Rossi down. Lorenzo Fellon, probably his best result he was going to get. It was looking so promising this weekend for the 658 Squadra Racer Honda, and unfortunately he crashed out as well. Philip Salach, no points for the man who started on pole position. Gabriel Rodrigo high-siding into turn 3. It was quite an aggressive crash for Gabriel Rodrigo. It's not often you see Moto3 bikes high-side, but unfortunately for Gabriel Rodrigo, that's his second high-side of the entire weekend, and he fell hard once again. He's already suffering issues with both of his feet. More so the right foot was damaged through the qualifying sessions, and once again, damaging all that again in the Sachsenring Grand Prix is certainly not good for any man's confidence, and certainly not for the Argentinians. So Adrian Fernandez, tough day for him. We'll get to his brother later on, who also had an interesting day, and Yuki Kuni, who had a great result on the cards, but unfortunately he crashed out as well. So many issues in Moto3, so much carnage, so many riders bumping into each other. Romano Fenati went off wide, Yamanaka, Denison Chu crashed. There's so many people who crashed in this Moto3 session, but unfortunately for me right now, I'm beginning to run out of time a little bit. I still need to discuss Moto2. We have quite a lot to discuss in MotoGP, so of course I will now move on to Moto2. We will now discuss probably the most dominant man in Sachsenring this weekend, without a doubt, Remy Gardner on board the Red Bull KTM IO Kalex. My goodness, that guy is unbelievable right now. His momentum is sky high, and his future is as bright as anything. Amazing for Remy Gardner. Within 2 laps, him and his teammate Raul Fernandez had about a 3-second lead, 2.5-second lead, 2 seconds, something around there, teetering around those numbers. It was unbelievable. Not a single rider came close to getting anywhere near the performance of what Remy Gardner put on this weekend. It was absolutely impervious. He was terrific. Amazing job from the Australian, who has now won 3 races in a row. MotoGP contract already signed. The guy is living the best life possible right now, and of course he is just extending the championship lead. Now of course his teammate Raul Fernandez made his first proper mistake this season, and of course crashed out at the Grand Prix. It was rather surprising to see either one of the Kalexes crash, but unfortunately for Raul Fernandez, it was him to take the dubious honour of crashing in this Grand Prix. Solid job from Aaron Canet taking 2nd place. Of course, by the time the race had finished, he was 6 seconds behind Remy Gardner, who had the most comfortable lead ever in the world. Fabio Di Giannantonio missed out on the podium. Really strange stuff from Fabio Di Giannantonio. I did expect him to be rather strong this weekend, or at least in the Grand Prix session itself, but he had a bad start, couldn't get himself going, and unfortunately missed out. And of course, Marco Bezzecchi, one of my favourite particular riders, finished in 3rd place. So very pleased to see Marco fighting for the podium. He has been extremely consistent this season, not finishing at any lower than 6th place Marco Bezzecchi has. Now that's a great result. That is a great performance from Marco Bezzecchi. Super confident and super consistent. However, Remy Gardner dominating here, winning 2 more races before this one. It's really overshadowing Marco Bezzecchi's brilliance right now. Of course, Marco Bezzecchi rumoured to join Rossi's team next season in MotoGP, so if he wants to win the World Championship, he's going to have to pull something massively out of the bag, and he's going to have to do it rather quickly. But of course, the crashes plagued Moto2 just as much as they did in Moto3. Great results for Xavi Vierge and Ayagura, went begging just 2 laps from the end. Ayagura actually crashed with just a couple of corners to go, which would have been his best finish, which was roughly about 5th place before Ayagura hit the kitty litter. Joe Roberts, you American fans out there are going to be disappointed once again because Joe Roberts crashed out of the Sachsenring GP. Lorenzo Dalla Porta, the Moto3 World Champion, or former Moto3 World Champion, let's say. Disappointment for him as well on board the Italtrans Racing team, so bad result for the Italtrans Racing team in general, with both men crashing out. Augusto Fernandez, once again, crashing out. He was involved with a bit of an altercation with Jake Dixon, as Jake Dixon made a move up on the inside into the waterfall section, down in the bottom of the hill, A little bit of a contact made with Augusto Fernandez as Fernandez bravely tried to go around the outside of Jake Dixon, which of course, both men trying to get the same piece of tarmac, didn't really work. The tiniest of collisions forced Augusto Fernandez wide and crashed out. Jake Dixon, of course, went wide as well, and he was handed a penalty. And it was so bizarre to think that just a certain incident between two riders into the Saxon curve that occurs quite a lot resulted into a penalty of that magnitude. It was a strange one, and I don't think Jake Dixon really did anything particularly wrong. It was just two men wanting the same piece of tarmac. Strange situation that both men certainly did not benefit from. Both men definitely came up short. Raul Fernandez, as mentioned already, crashed very, very early on, same as Fermin Aldeguer, one of the wildcard riders covering in for the EGO Speed Up team. Disappointment for him as well. But not a bad result for a couple of riders out there. Good to see Alberto Reinas getting a little bit more into Moto 2. He's finishing in 8th place. Now at one point the German rider, the home rider of course, Marcel Schrotter, did look really, really competitive, and it did look like he had the potential of getting on the podium in his home GP, but unfortunately for him, not able to do so. A lot of riders around him just had a little bit more to give, and unfortunately for him, he didn't manage to finish in the podium positions. But 6th place nonetheless for Marcel Schrotter is still a pretty good result for the Liqui Intact GP rider. Now that pretty much covers everything from Moto 2 side of the Sachsenring Grand Prix. Unfortunately for us fans, it wasn't the most interesting of races to see Remy Gardner disappear into the distance and just churn out the fast lap times, but the battle behind did keep us very much entertained. But of course Moto 2 can sometimes be very good, or it can be sometimes a little bit boring. But upon that note, we are going to move on to MotoGP, of course, and as you can see on screen right now, we are using the Grand Prix winner, Marc Marquez, bouncing back in fashionable style. Amazing job from the Spaniard, bouncing back from a very, very difficult and arduous season last season for Marc Marquez, and his season basically was sat on the couch, watching the television at home, and missing out on all this Grand Prix fun that I'm guarantee he was desperate to be battling with and desperate to come back and join in with the pack. And of course his story is pretty much incredible, fighting back from an injury and so many surgeries and so many issues to finally bounce back and take victory in a track he absolutely adores is something very, very special. Whether you're a Marquez fan, whether you're not a Marquez fan, it's something you have to respect no matter what. So the King of Sachsenring returns to his throne, 11 Grand Prix wins in a row for the man on board the Repsol Honda. But of course, enough about Marquez, we still have a lot to discuss, and I'm running out of time to try and fit everything in this particular video. So moving on now, we will discuss Miguel Oliveira. My goodness, that Portuguese man is a rock. He didn't look like he was putting a single foot wrong in the pursuit of chasing down Marc Marquez. And I gotta say, if there was a couple more laps, we won't be discussing Marquez right now, we'll be discussing Miguel Oliveira, because he was brilliant in this Grand Prix. I honestly thought he was going to do the business and chase down Marc, but I think Miguel Oliveira was extremely smart about it. Running out of laps towards the end, he probably could have done a little bit more, but mistakes could have been made. Marquez, of course, was responding to everything he possibly could as well. Amazing job from both men. Not the most entertaining of races in the sense of action and overtaking, because Sachsenring doesn't really offer that many overtaking opportunities anyway, but it was still very, very entertaining and very interesting. So great job for Miguel Oliveira, occupying 2nd place and just putting the pressure on Marquez. It's an incredible amount of pressure Miguel Oliveira is putting on. And then discussing Brad Binder finishing in 4th place. He was on the charge as well, so the Red Bull KTM's looking brilliant in the Sachsenring. So who knows what's going to be like now for the rest of the season, because the KTM seem to have got stronger last season towards the end of the campaign. And I'm guessing very much here is going to be the same thing with Miguel Oliveira getting into his own and sort of pushing forwards and forwards and forwards. We will now move on to 3rd place, Fabio Quartararo, the only Yamaha in the top 10. It tells you volumes when you look at that. The other Yamahas are struggling massively, yet Fabio Quartararo managing to get that bike into 3rd position, so great job for Fabio. But Yamaha have a lot of work to do. I don't think it was a comfortable 3rd place for Fabio. He looked a little bit out of shape. He didn't look to be confident. He looked to be as calm as he usually is. Great job for him nonetheless for finishing that close and finishing on the podium. It's a great result for him nonetheless. And of course Brad Binder, was putting the pressure on as he got closer and closer. Of course, he ran out of laps as well. Pecco Bagnaia somehow manages to be the quickest man on track many occasions on board a factory Ducati Desmos Tedeschi in Sachsenring. Now, if you're not too familiar with the Sachsenring, of course, as you can see on screen, 9 left-hand corners, 4 right-hand sides, not many straights. Ducati's weaknesses are here. This is Ducati's weaknesses. So I can't even tell you the last time Ducati won a Grand Prix here in the Sachsenring. It is a very difficult track for the Italian manufacturer, so I can't understand how Pecco Bagnaia has somehow managed to consistently set the fastest lap here in the Sachsenring. Amazing stuff for the young Italian. Of course, Aleix Espargaro, he was fantastic. The start of the Grand Prix, he was so good. He took the whole shot, and he was looking to be the eventual podium position winner, or podium inheritor if you want to say, but unfortunately it didn't materialise. The rain started to fall, and unfortunately Aleix Espargaro went backwards. His confidence was very much affected when the rain fell down, and I don't blame him. I think I'd freak out too if I was on a MotoGP bike, so I can't really blame him on that one. Alex Rins featured up there as well in the podium battle for quite a while, and then something happened. I do believe the rain might have spooked him as well. Maybe a bit of issues with his right arm, because of course coming back from injury with the right wrist, never easy jumping on a MotoGP machine with an injury. I can't even imagine how difficult that must be. But I mentioned the Yamahas earlier, and what a torrid race. Absolutely awful performance. Maverick Vinales finishing last. Franco Morbidelli just one position ahead of him. 18th and 19th for those Yamahas, and Valentino Rossi occupying the only second point scorer in the Yamaha camp, finishing in 14th place. Not a great result for the Doctor either. Now I just want to discuss some of the crashes in the Sachsenring Grand Prix. Unfortunately, Lorenzo Savadori, as his teammate was battling for the potential win, Savadori was crashing out and was featured walking away and back to the pits quite disappointed. He crashed quite early on in the Grand Prix, and a disappointment for Lorenzo Savadori. Did expect a little bit more from him this weekend, but unfortunately it didn't materialise. Danilo Petrucci started extremely well. He was up by about 9 positions in about 2 or 3 corners. Amazing job for Danilo Petrucci, and he looked like he had a lot of momentum on his side and was going to be fighting up there with the likes of Brad Binder, Quartararo, Jack Miller, Johan Zarco, and unfortunately for him, tangling with Alex Marquez into turn 1. A little bit of gesticulation from both riders. Nobody knows whose fault it was. Both men finished in the cat litter. Not great for either men. Disappointment for Danilo Petrucci. As I can imagine, Target is on his back right now. Remy Gardner is going to be taking a Tech 3 KTM seat. Which seat is it going to be? Is it going to be his or Lecco-Ona's? Who knows? A lot of pressure on both men's shoulders right now, and Danilo Petrucci obviously feeling the effects of that one. A very difficult race for Johan Zarco, the pole sitter. It looked like he was going to be very competitive, setting pole position on Saturday, looking really great on Sunday. Comes out and all of a sudden just disappears to the back. Unfortunately, Johan Zarco finishing in 8th place, and that really doesn't tell the whole story of the entire weekend that Johan Zarco's had. Missed opportunity, I would say. I'm not saying he should have been on the podium, but finishing 8th place is not exactly damage limitations when you're having a tough race. The greatest world champions in the world, in the tracks that they suffer at, they will take damage limitations, and that is the most points available at the time. Johan Zarco's 8th place doesn't really fit in that agenda for me. I did expect him to be a little bit further up, and of course being a championship favourite, or at least one of the contenders, he needs to make sure he does a little bit better than that one. Same can be applied to Pecco Bagnaia, Jack Miller. I just want to speak about the world champion, of course, the Suzuki X-Star rider, Joan Mir. Not a great result for him once again. I did expect big things from Joan Mir and a lot more of him, and especially here in a track such as Sachsenring, because the tyre life that the Suzukis can have against some of the riders who are quite aggressive. This is a track that is very much how much tyre can you save, and unfortunately we didn't see Joan Mir at all in this one. Neither of the Suzuki riders did a great job, and you got to say the Suzukis aren't looking as strong as they did last season. Last season they took an opportunity and they took it and they ran with it. This season it seems that everyone else has sort of upped their game a little bit, and Suzuki have remained the same status quo and not able to battle with the best of them on a consistent basis. But that is pretty much everything I want to discuss in this MotoGP race, which was of course at the Sachsenring in the hashtag German GP. I do hope you've enjoyed this video so far. Let me know in the comments section down below what you would like to discuss. What do you think the high points and the low points are of the German GP? And if anything I've missed, be sure to let me know in the comments section down below. I'm sure we can have a good old chinwag about it down there. But guys, that is it pretty much from me. So thank you very much for watching this video. Like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell to be alerted to every single DrAce upload. And upon that note guys, thanks for watching and ciao for now. Oh hi, didn't quite see you there. Good to see you're still here. If this video didn't quite set your appetite, then why not watch some more DrAce content by clicking the video shown on screen now. Furthermore, if you would like to follow me on social media, you can do so now with the links down in the description. Consider subscribing so you don't miss a single DrAce video.